Hi there, welcome back to Garden Girl. My name is Breanna. Today we're going to be talking about asparagus and some tips for success that I've learned and picked up that are really helpful in getting your asparagus going. So, asparagus is definitely a perennial that takes time and patience. So, year after year, the the bare roots get bigger and your asparagus produces more and you can harvest more. So you're kind of in it for the long game with asparagus when you're growing asparagus. And also you have to grow quite a bit to sustain a family. So I'm in a family of four, so I have a small 4x6 bed with asparagus, and they're not quite in full production yet, but I'd need quite a bit more to have a couple meals for our family. So just think about that. If you want some really good meals, you'd have to plant quite a bit. So this is our asparagus bed, and it doesn't look like much from here, but when you get in close, you can see the spears growing. And we've harvested a few spears already, a few good harvests, and these are second year crowns, so they're looking really good. So that's awesome, and it's definitely really tasty when you grow your own asparagus. It takes time to mature, and you don't get a lot of harvest, but they're definitely delicious when you grow them yourself. So let's get into how to grow them. So they do take time to establish, but once they do, they'll produce for many years, actually, even more than 20 years sometimes. So when you're starting off, this is what I did. I got 1 year old crowns or bare roots, and this gives you a head start because the bare roots take about 3 years until you can start harvesting a few harvests from them. So if you get the 1 year old crowns, you'll get a head start on that production. So you can do that, or you can even start from seed, which is quite easy to do. You can just start them in a tray or in pots, and you can just get some seed online or at your local nursery. And you can start the seed 6 to 8 weeks before you want to put into the garden. And then you simply plant it like you would at the same time as you would the bare roots. So you're looking when you start to plant, you have your bare roots, or if you have asparagus plants, you're looking to plant them when kind of in spring, when the ground can be worked, but you're not getting as many frosts. So it's kind of before like your last frost date per se, but it's still you're not getting any real hard frosts anymore. So you're kind of shooting for that spot in spring. So you're going to want to take your bare roots or your plants, and a lot of times they say to plant it quite deep in the ground, and you can do this, but I found like they say about 1 foot or so, but I found just 6 to 8 inches is fine. That's plenty. So just get a good bed where you want to plant your asparagus and put some nice nutrient rich soil in there, a bit of compost or potting soil is really good as well, light enough that the asparagus can grow well in it. And you're going to want to make sure it's in an area where you're not going to be moving them for a while if you can, because like more of a permanent bed. So that would be good. And yes, you're going to want to plant them 6 to 8 inches deep, which is perfect. And then you can space them. A lot of times they say to space them a foot apart, but I found for me you don't have to do that. It's better to put them in closer because you'll just get different weeds growing anyway in between, and it's a little hard to weed them. So if you do 4 to 6 inches apart, and you can fit more in a bed, and you'll get more production, and you won't get as much weeds growing. So that's really good, I find. So 4 to 6 inches apart, uh, and this applies to if you're planting the bare roots or the little plants. So, of course, if you're planting the plants, you're not going to be planting them under the ground, under the soil. The bare roots are what you plant 6 to 8 inches under the soil. but if you're planting the plants, you have to plant them in the soil, simply like you would any other plant. So when you're planting your bare roots, try not to harm the little crown in the center of the roots. This is very important because that's the life of the bare root. So just be careful when you're planting it. And then when you go to water them, you can just water them like any other perennial. And make sure you keep them watered throughout the season as well, because they do need water as well. So the asparagus, the first year, you're going to want to plant them, and then you just leave them. Like you just keep them watered and you just let them grow. So they're going to send out their shoots, and they're going to basically go to seed, essentially. So they're going to send out these shoots that are kind of like fern-like looking. And so that's basically the asparagus plant as well. So it's going to seed, and so you leave that. So it's kind of like, say, tulips or daffodils, where you know that you don't cut them back right away until there's enough time for the energy to go back into the bulb for next year. It's the same with asparagus. So these little fern shoots, you keep them until they start turning yellow, and kind of that means the energy is going back into the asparagus bare root. You can leave them until they dry up in the fall, but you don't have to. You can leave them at least till they start yellowing, and that's later. I think that's maybe later summer in the fall. That's when they start yellowing, and then you can start cutting them back or whatever. Sometimes I just leave them. I don't even touch them. You can do that too, and just keep them watered. That's your first year. The next year, you can actually start harvesting 1 to 2 spears, I should say, per plant, and then just leave the rest go to seed again. And this doesn't really harm the plant that much. Sometimes they say just to leave them the second year, but I find I don't think it makes a big difference if you just harvest 1 to 2, because they'll send more shoots out, and then you just leave the rest go to seed. And it's so exciting to be able to try it after the second year. And then you just keep it watered, do the same thing. And then by the third year, you can harvest more from the plant. So basically how the asparagus works is it keeps sending out spears from each plant. So it'll keep going, sending out spears until you want to stop. So sometimes they say to harvest them until they start, they're more of a width of a pencil. So that means you should let them go to seed. So that's more when they get more established. So the third year, you can do maybe 3 harvests, maybe, or maybe 2 to 3 harvests per plant would be good. And then the next years following, you can do more harvests from them, until they have the width of a pencil or whatever. So basically the bare root will increase in production as the plant matures. So watch the asparagus as it grows fast in spring. It comes up quite quickly, and when you cut it, you can use a knife. Probably a knife is probably the best. And you can also harvest it when it's about 7 to 8 inches high. And the thicker spears are actually the most tender. So that's awesome. And another tip is to keep the bed weeded. Make sure there's no weeds in there that get really established or whatever. And you can also fertilize it a bit in the summer if you find it needs it. And that's pretty much it.